Hello. I'm Whicker, and here at Acton, just 5 miles from the centre of London, I'm at the headquarters of a company whose name doesn't ring a very loud bell with the average man in the street. But in their own particular field, they're very well known indeed. Their name is C.A.V. Basically, they're engineers, but engineers with a difference. Among other things, they're the world's largest manufacturer of fuel injection equipment for diesel engines. They also produce, in very large quantities, electrical equipment for the commercial transport industry and devices like turbochargers, but more of these later. C.A.V. are old established. They started here in a small way more than 60 years ago, but they've not stood still. And today, these works, covering 9 acres, are a hive of concentrated activity. And over there, a more recent addition, an entire block devoted to research and engineering development. This has been described as the finest of its kind in the world, and perhaps that's a story in itself. Across the years, the growth in the transport industry led to an ever-increasing demand for diesel and electrical equipment, and a need to expand manufacturing capacity. In recent years, they've acquired and equipped new factories in different parts of the country, each specializing in the manufacture of a particular group of products. For instance, in the northwest, near Liverpool, one of these plants is devoted to the production of the conventional inline fuel injection pumps used on the larger diesel engines. And in Sudbury, Suffolk, a completely new factory specializes in the manufacture of injectors, nozzles, and fuel filtration systems. A highly automated plant designed and built for the job. Yet another, and one of the largest of the C.A.V. factories at Rochester in Kent. Once the home of the famous short flying boats, in their days world pioneers of trans-ocean travel, it's now equipped with the most advanced machinery for the mass production of one of the company's main products, a fuel injection pump of revolutionary design and high precision known as the DPA distributor type. More than 2.5 million of these pumps have been built here since their introduction. And you may be wondering, what happens to them? Where do they all go? The answer is that C.A.V. have a remarkable export record, and no less than 70% of their production is shipped abroad, either as separate units or fitted to engines, vehicles, and tractors. In addition, there's the rest of the equipment that makes up the complete fuel injection system. The DPA pump has proved to be one of the most outstanding developments in diesel engineering, as shown by the fact that it's been widely adopted by the British commercial vehicle industry and also fitted as standard equipment to the majority of British tractors. In my television work, wandering around Whicker's world and capturing parts of it for the small screen, I've done my share of globe-trotting. But when I accepted the invitation to go and see what C.A.V. means overseas, there was an immediate problem. Where do you start such a tour? Which country do you pick out of well over 100? Well, we decided to concentrate on territories where C.A.V. have manufacturing plants. And so, number 1 on the list, and a short hop across the channel to our neighbor, France. France. This conjures up thoughts of Paris, but the nearest I got to gay Paris was Orly Airport. I left immediately by train, traveling south 100 miles or so to a town called Blois. Blois is on the banks of the Loire, in the center of the famous chateau country. From the 12th to the 19th centuries, the kings of France and their nobles chose the valley of the Loire as the setting for their splendid homes. Typical of these times is the chateau of Chaumont, Outwardly a feudal fortress with its moat and drawbridge, yet already showing signs of the Renaissance influence. Another fine example of the period is Chenonceau. This was built over the river Cher, a tributary of the Loire. But the classic masterpiece is Chambord, conceived and built early in the 16th century by François Ier. By complete contrast, the Château du Moulin, a perfect miniature, just a few miles from Chambord. A peaceful scene. After the tranquility of Moulin, back once again to Blois and the bustling traffic crossing its bridge, linking a town spread out on both sides of the river. Blois, now busy and prosperous, has an ancient past. Back in 1429, Joan of Arc led her army from here to liberate Orleans. And towering above the main street in the town center is one of the most famous of the chateaux. Rich in 4 centuries of French history, this was a palace of the Renaissance kings. So much for the past, romantic as it was. Blois today is fast becoming an important industrial center. And on the outskirts of the old town, a well-planned development scheme is underway. New industry needs people, and people need to be housed. So wisely, the first consideration's been to provide homes for the new population of workers manning the factories. A community being provided with flats and houses of contemporary design within easy reach of the new industrial zone. My main reason for being in France was to visit this industrial estate and one factory in particular. Yes, you've guessed, C.A.V. is here. To be exact, this factory is operated by a company jointly owned by C.A.V. and the French DBA Group, leading manufacturers of motor and aircraft accessories. The company is called Roto Diesel, formed in 1959 for the express purpose of manufacturing C.A.V. fuel injection equipment under license for the French market. This fine modern plant has been equipped for large-scale production of injectors and nozzles, filters, and of course, the heart of the fuel injection system, the DPA distributor pump, to which a large part of the factory space is devoted. Manufacturing methods and techniques follow very closely those developed at Rochester, and many of the key personnel have been trained at the British factory. Mass production on this scale, of this nature, calls for a high degree of accuracy and precision, and to achieve this, a large proportion of automatic machinery has been adopted, and to meet some requirements, special purpose machines have been developed. It was interesting to learn that these machines were actually designed and built in the Roto Diesel tool. As in Britain, the DPA pump certainly made its mark on the French diesel industry. Such is its success and popularity that the output of this factory alone fast approaches 100,000 units a year. Attached to the factory, but tucked away behind the scenes, is the Research and Development Unit, the Backroom Boys, a department of considerable importance. Their job is the testing and proving of new engines during the development stages. This work, of course, is undertaken in collaboration with the manufacturers. Following the pattern adopted by C.A.V. at Acton, the engine test cells are isolated and soundproofed. All controls are initiated by the operators from fully instrumented control boards coupled to each test bed. Development testing is meticulous, protracted work. Often engines are run at high speeds for days, even weeks, and always under constant observation. By these means, a full study can be made of the characteristics of prototype engines, and the particular requirements that the fuel injection equipment has to meet can be accurately determined. To supplement this laboratory work, proving's also carried out under actual service conditions. With the help of friendly farmers, tractors are put through their paces, and vehicles equipped with test and recording gear are out at work on the roads. I made several trips in one of these vehicles to see some of this field work at first hand. There's no doubt that the DPA pump has been favourably received by the French diesel industry. There was plenty of evidence of this. The home-produced Massey Ferguson, powered with a French Perkins diesel, is one of the popular makes of tractor to be seen on farms throughout the country, and it's also exported in quantity to the common market areas. By the way, this particular farmer had an extraordinary collection of livestock in his yard, including, I fancy, some excellent Christmas dinner potential. Another equally well-known tractor is the Renault. To my eyes, this looked typically French and a thoroughly workmanlike job, if the furrow it's ploughing is anything to go by. These are just a couple of typical examples of roto-diesel equipment in use. On the road, distributor pumps are fitted as standard equipment to a large proportion of lorries and trucks, and in the private car field there are interesting developments. Peugeot have introduced a model, the 404 diesel, outwardly identical in appearance to the petrol version, but fitted with a diesel power unit of outstanding design. I'm told this is becoming extremely popular in Europe in view of its high performance and economy. Throughout France, following C.A.V. policy adopted in other territories, users of roto-diesel equipment are assured of efficient after-sales service through a chain of factory-trained service agents. And the word service reminded me of one more location to be visited before leaving France, a call on Lucas Service Europe at Nanterre on the outskirts of Paris. This organization's been set up to look after the requirements of users of Lucas Group products. The servicing of electrical and diesel equipment is one of the functions of the depot, and new components and service parts can be supplied to the dealer network from a comprehensive stock. At their training school, as I watched a dealer instruction course in progress, I remembered this was to be my last day in France. But there are compensations. Tomorrow, I'm off to Spain. It was pleasant to be in Spain once again. On my last visit, I was filming bullfighting, a very different assignment. Spain is an intriguing country, a land of fascination, and here in Barcelona, as in every other European city, traffic dominates the scene. But the special traffic police usually contrive to keep things running smoothly. My objective was a small town a few miles outside the city with a romantic-sounding name, Sant Cugat del Valle, Sant Cugat in the Valley. Leaving town by road, one must cross a small mountain, the Tibidabo, a popular spot. From the top, looking back, there's a fine panoramic view of Barcelona. Sant Cugat itself, though so near the big city, has an air of earlier times. It's very old and has grown up around an ancient monastery. The horse and donkey carts add to the sleepy charm of the place, until modern motor vehicles come into view. I was told there are still more than 1 million animal traction vehicles registered in Spain. Agriculture's always been one of the main occupations of the valley. It's typical vineyard country. The location and climate are particularly suitable for growing wine grapes, to which much of the area is devoted. But in the midst of this rural environment, a new prosperity has come to Sant Cugat. For within a stone's throw of the old monastery, a new and thriving industry has come into being. On a site where only a few years ago grapes were growing, a modern factory and office block has been built by a new partnership, a company formed to undertake the manufacture of C.A.V. fuel injection equipment for the Spanish market. The company is called Diesel, or in full, Constructora de Equipos Diesel S.A., but I think I'll settle for Diesel. Starting from scratch, as they did, they could design and lay out their new factory specifically for the job. Manufacture, under license, of the essential components of diesel engines includes distributor and inline fuel pumps, injector nozzles and holders, feed pumps, and paper element filters. Already, within a few years of their formation, Diesel are the largest single suppliers of this equipment to the major diesel engine builders in Spain. The DPA distributor pump, the most recent addition to the products manufactured here, has made a big impact on the industry, and large-scale production methods have been introduced to meet the demand that's followed. Manufacturing techniques are similar to those employed at other C.A.V. factories. In fact, the whole project has been planned in conjunction with C.A.V. in Britain, with the fullest interchange of methods and know-how. The considerable economic growth of Spain in recent years has intensified the need for improved transport. A large proportion of freight is carried by road, due perhaps to the inadequacy of the railway. But it's resulted in a rapid and dramatic expansion of the commercial vehicle industry. This industry, by the way, enjoys the benefits of rigorous import restrictions on foreign-made goods. Thus, more and more home-produced diesel engines are required, and of course, the very necessary fuel pumps and equipment. That's why here at Diesel, plans are well in hand to enlarge the existing manufacturing capacity. Extensions are being built onto the factory on land earmarked for this purpose when the site was chosen. I came away from our friends at Sant Cugat with the impression that here was an organization modestly pleased with its achievements and preparing vigorously for the future. There was plenty to be seen in Barcelona, but I had to press on, for the next port of call was Madrid, where many of the diesel and vehicle manufacturers are located. Traveling those 300 miles by road provided striking differences in terrain and road conditions. And in places, in the more mountainous regions, the going was, well, rather on the tricky side. However, it did give me an opportunity of seeing their transport in action and seeing what it's got to contend with. On the farms, mechanization is taking place gradually, although in many places agriculture is still backward. There are some remarkable contrasts to be seen. For instance, within a couple of miles of this rather primitive, but I suppose effective, method of tilling the soil, I saw no less than 4 harvesters at work in the same cornfield. On another farm, a tractor was at work with a baler. This was quite lush-looking countryside. It could almost be mistaken for some parts of Britain, were it not for the farm workers and the sun hat. Anyhow, I was once again able to see Diesel equipment in operation. This journey to Madrid was long and tedious, and as usual time was pressing, but I managed to visit some of the main factories. The first was the Perkins Hispania division of Motor Iberica, a member of the Massey Ferguson Group and one of the major diesel engine builders in the country. Their engines, based on the well-known British Perkins design, are fitted to many of the leading makes of vehicles, tractors and combine harvesters built in Spain. The Avia is a typical Perkins engine truck, produced by an aviation company, Aeronautica Industria. It's an efficient-looking job, and the engine, like most of the Perkins range, has a DPA pump of Diesel manufacture fitted as standard equipment. Another concern that's gained prominence in the Spanish automotive industry is Barreros, a leading firm of diesel manufacturers who produce a wide variety of vehicles at their Madrid works, ranging from commercial lorries and private cars to tractors and forklift trucks. Barreiros are large users of con-diesel equipment. Both DPA and inline pumps are specified for the various types of engines produced. An interesting feature was their own private test track built within the works. Every road vehicle they manufacture is tested here, and as all kinds of road conditions can be simulated, there's no need to go out onto the public roads. High up on the banking under test was a Dodge Dart, a car of American design made under license. While on the inner lane and putting up a good show for themselves were Barreiros truck chassis. This visit to Barreiros had to be brief, for I was working to a tight schedule. So, back to the city for a call on Lucas Iberica. They look after the Lucas C.A.V. service interests here, and a chance to arrange the next leg of the trip to Madras in South India, another 5,000 flying miles. It was a pleasant time of the year to be visiting Madras. It can be very hot and humid later in the season. I was fortunate enough to miss the typhoons that had struck the area a few weeks before. This is just one of 5 ships driven inshore and wrecked on the Marina Beach during the storm. A visitor to Madras must inevitably find himself in Mount Road at some time or other. It's the busy main thoroughfare, a nerve centre of the city. Transport within the city and the surrounding districts has greatly improved in recent years, and the State Transport Department operate a large fleet of buses serving more than 500 routes. But the roads just a few miles outside the city are very different. There was the occasional bus or lorry, but bullock-drawn carts were the typical leisurely mode of transport. Here at Padi, amid rural surroundings, a modern factory has been built by Lucas C.A.V.s to manufacture electrical equipment for the rapidly expanding car and commercial vehicle industry of India. It's a joint enterprise formed between the Lucas organization and C.A.V.s, an old established Indian company with more than 50 years sales and service experience of the automobile and transport industry. The factory is a combined operation in more ways than one, for both Lucas and C.A.V. products are manufactured here. The Lucas range includes electrical equipment and components for passenger cars and motorcycles, while C.A.V. activities are devoted to the production of starters and dynamos for commercial vehicles. Production techniques employed are based on the long experience of Lucas and C.A.V. in the manufacture of electrical products in Britain. Flow production methods are used throughout in the assembly arrangements. These ensure economic manufacture of high and constant quality. It was fascinating to watch the nimble fingers of the girls, with their attractive saris and their hair decoration. Many of the operators were recruited from local villages, some completely unused to this sort of work, but after training they've proved adaptable and eager to put their new skills into practice. There was a noticeable sense of pride among these people as they carried out their work. The general impression was one of efficiency. There's complete control of quality at every stage of manufacture, and special test arrangements have been introduced at key points to ensure that sub-assemblies and finished units conform to design specifications. The completed components are subjected to a stringent test program. Starters must be capable of standing up to very heavy loads, and every dynamo must satisfy a rigid specification. Quality control extends beyond the factory floor. In the metallurgical and chemical laboratories, samples of all raw materials used in manufacture are physically and chemically examined. The laboratories are also responsible for the development and the control of many of the work's processes. Looking ahead to the future, preliminary work has been undertaken on the production of alternators. Already established in many territories, this product should prove of great value in the Indian commercial vehicle market. One of its main advantages is the ability to maintain full charging conditions at low engine speeds. C.A.V. dynamos and starters produced at the C.A.V.s factory are standard equipment on many of the commercial and passenger vehicles made in India for the home market. Mercedes-Benz are a typical and well-known example. Another large user is the Ashok Leyland Company, with a works in Madras producing a range of engines and chassis, among which is the world-famous Comet, used throughout the country for buses and freight-carrying vehicles. This Leyland engine was brought from the production line. You can see the neat and functional positioning of its C.A.V. dynamo and starter. No one should visit India without seeing some of its temples, and during my stay, I saw some classic examples. South India is famous for its sacred shrines, and in Madras alone there are more than 100 in the city and surrounding districts. One temple that fascinated me was outside the city and quite close to the factory at Padi. It was comparatively small, but possessed a remarkable array of highly colored animals and images. Another fine example of early Indian religious art was at Mahabalipuram. I just hope I got that name right. At Mahabalipuram, on the coast a few miles south of Madras. Covering a large area, practically every rock's been carved or sculpted, one of the finest masterpieces of its kind. A trip back to the city was a chance to see some rural activity. My last impression of Madras was on Republic Day, when it seemed that just about everyone had turned out in their Sunday best. There was a procession in support of one of the political parties, and everyone seemed quite happy. But it was time to leave India, to start the longest leg, a journey halfway around the world to Brazil in South America. Brazil. An enormous and exotic country, where once again I had to concentrate on one definite area. My assignment was in Sao Paulo, a city some 50 miles inland from Santos, principal seaport of the land. The road from the coast passes over, and sometimes through, a range of mountains known as the Sierra. It's an impressive piece of engineering, and the main artery for seaborne goods reaching the city. Consequently, diesel-powered transport is very much part of the scene. It was midsummer, and brilliantly colored trees and shrubs bordered the main road. Sao Paulo, the industrial and commercial center, skyscrapers dwarfing the old churches and buildings huddling below. The growth of this city has been phenomenal. Practically all these modern buildings have sprung up during the last decade or so. Most of the large manufacturing concerns are to be found around Sao Paulo, particularly the automotive and tractor industries. C.A.V. have their factory at Cotia, a few miles outside the city, where fuel injection equipment is manufactured for the Brazilian market. Road transport and agriculture play a vital part in the country's economy, and as in so many other parts of the world, the diesel engine is making tremendous contributions. So, it's not surprising to find the DPA much in evidence. The assembly lines, though small in comparison, follow the pattern adopted in other manufacturing centres, a point that becomes apparent in a tour of this kind. Go inside any C.A.V. factory, wherever it's situated, and at once, everything seems familiar. One could be anywhere. Only the work people sometimes look different. This standardization's all part of C.A.V. policy to ensure that products conform to the same high standards wherever they're made. In Brazil, all the assembly work and even the calibrating and testing of DPA pumps is done by women. Apparently, they've proved more adept at this kind of work than men. Another activity at Cotia is the production of paper filters. The high degree of efficiency of C.A.V.'s fuel filtration system and its ability to cope with arduous operating conditions is of great benefit to these territories. During this tour, I've made a point of visiting some of the users of C.A.V. equipment in each country, and Brazil was no exception. The first call was to the Perkins Engine Works in San Bernardo. Motores Perkins, a subsidiary of the well-known British company, are one of the leading diesel manufacturers in Brazil. Perkins engines are in widespread use throughout South America. They power many of the vehicles and tractors produced here by Chevrolet, by Willis, and by Ford. Ford have been established in Brazil for many years, with a large works within the Sao Paulo city boundaries, turning out cars and trucks and tractors. Traveling out into the country to see Ford tractors at work also enabled me to look at some of the local agricultural methods. They're not so very different from elsewhere. I suppose disc harrowing looks about the same anywhere. Except that this chap did tread on the gas a bit. There was another tractor on this farm, an early Ford that's been in constant use for more than 6 years. It received regular servicing and filter changes throughout its life, and the lead seals on the original DPA pump remain unbroken. Keep it clean was obviously the slogan here. Massey Ferguson is another popular tractor in Brazil. They're also manufactured in Sao Paulo and, like Ford, are powered by Perkins diesels. On this hillside farm, the ground was being prepared for the planting of sweet corn, one of the crops that grow prolifically in this rich red soil. The climatic conditions are ideal. It's not unusual to find it growing side by side with sugar cane, with the odd row of bananas thrown in. I gathered that there are 5 different types of banana grown here. This was one of them. Yes, they've got 1 million tons of bananas in Brazil. Then there were the oranges. Unfortunately not yet ripe enough for eating, though they've already started picking. Another widely grown commodity is rice. In this paddy field it was being harvested, and, as I thought at the time, this could easily have been India. There was just one more thing that I had to do before leaving Brazil, and that, of course, was to see that famous coffee grove. And that meant traveling a long way. Apparently, Most of the big fortunes in Sao Paulo were made from coffee, but now the planters have gone south for better and more fertile land. And here it was in abundance. Although it was the wrong time of the year to see the crop at its best, there were acres of orderly lines of bushes, each with its branches heavy with plump coffee beans, the very start of the journey to your cup. And on the side, a new plantation was being prepared for the future. Watching these people at work, I thought how pleasant it would be to return one day and see the results of their labor. But as usual, time was pressing, and I had to think of another journey, the last of this trip, a long flight home, 6,000 miles away. Well, to worry an old phrase, this is where I came in. Back at Acton, with 25,000 miles of travel behind me. I hope that quick spin round the globe gave you a better idea of what C.A.V. means in the world of diesel power. On the next trip, well, there's 100 countries left to choose from. Mexico, the Far East, Eastern Europe. We'll see next time. Thanks for coming, and goodbye.